Well, in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm still looking for some of the names of the people who are joining us to address you guys tonight. Hopefully they're not having any trouble with the link to join the meeting. But appreciate you guys taking the time to be here. And we do record these meetings and share them out so people who aren't able to join live are able to view and watch. I'm going to go back over to my screen share for just a minute. Some of you were still signing in when I shared this quote from Roberto Clemente, which is the quote for the meeting tonight, and one that I'm reminded of through my coaster in my house. But anytime you have the opportunity to make a difference in the world and you don't, then you are wasting your time on earth. And I think it's just a great reminder to inspire us to take action. And that's what we're all here to do. This is the agenda for tonight's meeting. And there's a lot of words here. Just want you to highlight on the numbers. We have some guests that we're going to introduce and ask them to share a few words with you and be available for a few questions. And then we just want to announce some of the candidates that have gone through the official endorsement process so we can announce our endorsed candidates. And we have a special announcement later this week that's going to happen live in Pittsburgh. We want to make sure that everyone knows about that. And then we'll open the floor for overall sharing. So I did see the end. Great. Welcome, David. You're at the top of my list. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us here tonight.
Sure. Get my lighting here. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I want to announce to everyone on the call before even handing the microphone over to you. David's joining us. He's been with the committee of 70 and with Ballot PA for a period of time. This is a group that we've shared with you guys many times over the past year as we've joined for these monthly meetings. And our leadership committee and executive committee officially voted last month to make an official endorsement of the organization in appreciation for the work they do and to encourage the work that they're doing. And really appreciate David taking the time to join us tonight and just share a little bit about that work and be available for a few questions. So go ahead, David. Thank you.
Sure. I really appreciate the invite. I've followed the development of the Forward Party with great interest, and I know there's a real synergy between what you folks are about and what we're trying to do here. I see Ben Valamont, who's been involved with a number of our calls and been helping out. I'll just give you the quick story and I'll give you the quick up to date. So Ballot PA is a project, a campaign really that came out of the Committee of 70, which is a longstanding good government group based in Philadelphia, if you didn't know that. But the campaign really began in earnest 2.5 years ago with a simple goal in mind, and that is to take Pennsylvania off the list of the 7 remaining states that denies independent voters the right to vote in primary elections. We could go into the long history of how we got there, but let's just say we don't want to be the last. That I think fulfills the promise of what of a critical component of our democratic republic, which is that every voter ought to be able to vote in every election. And for a variety of reasons, Pennsylvania is not among them. So we set out to change that. Folks ask, well, how do you do that? It does not involve a constitutional amendment. It's simply a bill. And I learned this today. You learn something every day in this sort of thing, that the first bill to open primaries to independents actually originated in the legislature in Pennsylvania in 1995. So a mere 28 years later, we're still going at it. And I have this general theory that every time you take on this sort of an issue, that the tide comes in a little higher. And 2.5 years ago, we looked at this opportunity and really thought this might be the time when the tide can come all the way in. And I still feel that way. And the next couple months will decide whether I'm right, because we placed a lot of bets on it. We've been doing what you do to try to build momentum around this change. We've been engaged in a very active public communications and education campaign. And you may have seen, we had a couple of stories break just in today's media. We secured the endorsement of all 5 former governors of Pennsylvania who are still living. My father is not living. My father's former governor back in the 80s, but he would be among that number, I'm sure. And that's a big statement. I said to one reporter that these days, unfortunately, the idea that you could get 5 public officials of that stature from different parties to agree on just about anything is pretty remarkable. So we're very proud of that endorsement. This is, I mean, we've polled this and shared the polling results. It's very popular among voters. Basically 75% overall approval, ranging from 69% approval of Trump Republicans, self-styled Trump Republicans, to 85% of progressive Democrats, and everybody else is somewhere in between. What else can I tell you? So there are bills in the legislature. In the Senate, Dan Laughlin from Erie and Lisa Boscola from the Lehigh Valley are the 2 prime sponsors, but also include about, I think there are about 15 co-sponsors on the Senate bill. If you follow this last couple of years, a bill like this actually passed the Senate in 2019 when Joe Scarnati was president of the Senate, and just didn't clear the House. So we're trying to kind of freshen the trail through the Senate and blaze a new one through the House. In the House, the bills, there are actually 2 bills. One prime sponsor is Jared Solomon from Philadelphia, and the other one is a new Republican from Lawrence County named Marla Brown. So we've got a good bipartisan lineup, but have been engaged in the tough, 3 yards in a cloud of dust campaign to bring around folks who are, in the political class, the elected official class. You're naturally paranoid. You got elected by a set of rules, and you're not that wild about the idea of changing that set of rules. But we are bound and determined to convince them, as the governor's letter said, that this is the right thing to do and it's a smart thing. It's the right thing because there's a basic issue of fairness. We all pay about $50 million a year to hold primary elections on behalf of the political parties. And yet, people are literally in the business, if you're an independent, of paying for a party that you don't get invited to. So the other aspect of fairness really, I think, hits home with a lot of folks. Some of you may know about half of all veterans identify as political independents. So if you're a Pennsylvania veteran who's also an independent, you come home from serving your country and laying your life on the line for this country, and then we tell you that you can't vote. And to me, that is unconscionable. I don't know if there are any Steelers fans out there. I am among them. And we got 3 minutes to game time. So just saying. Rocky Bleier, the legendary Steeler running back and Vietnam vet, has been one of our most vocal and persuasive spokespeople on that issue representing veterans. I'll just say one other thing. As I said, it's the right thing to do. It's a smart thing to do. I suspect I get a lot of agreement. We all know that the folks who show up in primaries tend to come from one extreme or the other of the political spectrum. And then when they elect a candidate, and often the election in the primary is the only election in town, they're creating incentives that make it difficult for that elected representative to engage in the time-honored tradition of give and take and compromise that is necessary to get stuff done. So unless and until we change those incentives, we're not going to see anything different. If you add 1.2 million independent voters to the primary electorate, you broaden the base, and I think you fundamentally change the incentives facing those folks who are running. So, you know, we're in a big fight right now. We hope we can get this done this fall. I can tell you more on where things stand, but I really appreciate the opportunity to share all of that with you. And again, I've been watching your activities with great interest. And I'll just say this: I know Seth Bluestein's, I think, campaign manager on here. Seth is a friend and was a former student of mine at the Fells Institute of Government, and is a really terrific guy. So if you're attracting people like that, that also tells you something about, you know, you're known by the company you keep, right? And that's good company. So I'll stop there. I don't know if you want, if we have time for a question or two, but.
Sure. Yeah. Dave, first of all, just thank you for your persistence in the work and your commitment to getting things done. From Pennsylvania forward, I just want to let you know there's very little that we prescribe of our candidates. We want them to do the thinking and to lead just with values. But we do ask that they commit to considering election reform, because we realize how important that is and that everyone needs to be represented.
Yep.
So part of the pledge that we ask from our candidates is aligned with the type of work that you do. So we are truly an ally and really appreciate the work that you're putting into it. Outside of getting the right people in office, which is the work that we're directly committed to, where can we direct people? To your website, there's a place for people to actually submit a letter and contact their representatives?
Yes.
Right.
We've got a digital petition, and so I may be wrong, but I think Ben is helping out right now. We're actually in midst of a pretty, by our standards, a pretty significant phone outreach campaign to about 30,000 independent voters in the state, with the time-honored simple message: it's time to contact your representative and to say, you know, here are the bills, we need your support. And again, this is a smart thing and the right thing to do. So, you know, it sounds like civics 101, but it still worked. And we're encouraging, and I think this probably resonates with you folks, we're encouraging really personal outreach. I'm just a believer that a well-placed personal call, a personal letter, a personal visit is worth 100, you know, kind of pro forma emails that are generated at the click of a button. So, but you know, we welcome both the individual outreach, and if any of you want to help on the team that we've put together to reach those, this is 30,000 independent super voters we're trying to reach around the Commonwealth, and we're getting a very, very responsive, a terrific response from those folks, because now is when we need them.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I see that Ben put the link to the website in the chat for anyone who wants to jump over and read up more or to join that petition. But as David said, personal outreach is so much more meaningful, and really encourage you guys to do that. I see a hand from David still.
David, nice to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you too.
We've worked on a number of things over the years, and I certainly remember those debates on open primaries over the years. And it's always been the same article. It's a power play on the part of parties who fear allowing people who may not have the commitment that party members have. But unfortunately, I think the points you lay out are really good. The question I have is, are you also working on ranked choice voting? I think you were involved in that last year.
Yeah, to me, this is, what we're after right now is kind of a starter model. It is the simplest way to broaden the base of the electorate and change the incentives, and that's to allow independents to choose a primary in which to participate. This is for some folks that are actually doing things like ranked choice voting, this is almost child's play. They're like, what's wrong with you? But Dave, you know Pennsylvania probably better than I do. This change doesn't come easily. So we're trying to push the door open and see what else can come through. I think a lot of folks, I've been watching the ranked choice movement very closely, and I'm convinced it really deserves a good look. It feels like just fundamentally a better way of voting that it gives you a candidate that appeals to a broader base of the electorate. And I think that's what we're after these days. So, if we can put it this way, if we can't get this done, then the idea that we could get ranked choice voting done is kind of vaporizes. So we got to get this done, first
I
things.
agree. Yep, I agree. And I appreciate the work on it. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Christian, you're muted if you're talking.
Thank you. I forgot that I muted myself that time. David, thank you for being here. Appreciate you taking the time. Feel free to stick around, but I know that you might want to go watch that Steeler game.
It's game time, so
that's right. Thank you.
Look, keep up the good work, and let's get this done.
Thank you.
See you all.
Jason, I see that you're here with us tonight. We haven't had a chance to meet yet. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you and what's going on with the campaign.
Thank you for having me. I apologize for not looking my best. My daughter's been in and out of the hospital the past couple of weeks, so I've been running in and out of the office and I haven't really taken the time to shave, so I apologize. But thank you for having me. I don't think I can ask for a better introduction for Seth than David Thornburg, so I'll skip over. Seth's a really good guy. But for those of you who don't know much about the Philadelphia City Commissioner's Office, they are actually the administrators of elections within the city and county of Philadelphia. That is everything from making sure the poll workers are trained, the actual workers inside the poll who run the machines, to getting the machines ready, getting the ballots ready, everything big and small about a campaign that you don't know. Seth has been in the office for about 12 years. He worked under Al Schmidt, who has now gone on to be Secretary of State under Governor Shapiro. Seth was nominated to take the position by Mayor Kenny. He was then named the position by City Council to fill the vacancy. Had very broad bipartisan support, also support from a lot of groups like the Committee of 70, Center for Election Integrity, because of his background in the office and his proven record for actually running good, fair elections. Normally, when I would come on to something like this and talk to you, one of the things we'd ask for would be, your help in raising some money. For those who don't know, Seth's opponent in this race, the person who was going to run against him was a Working Families Party candidate for the minority position in Philadelphia. The major party is guaranteed, or the minority party is guaranteed one of the 3 spots. The Working Families Party had put up a candidate who ironically didn't follow the rules to get on the ballot correctly. and was therefore challenged by some voters, and the courts agreed that he didn't follow those rules correctly, and he was taken off the ballot. And so Seth now doesn't have an opponent, so I'm not gonna ask you to contribute to Seth's campaign, which is normally something the campaign manager would do, but what I am going to say is, everybody on this call has a vested interest, obviously, that's why you're here, in seeing, elections that are fair, elections that are more transparent, elections that afford more access to all voters. I encourage you to go to Seth's website, see his record on those sort of things. One of the things you might find out, is Seth was awarded 2022 Defender of Democracy by the Center for Election Innovation and Research. I say that because I think that's an organization that probably has a lot of things in common with the goals of the Forward Party. I mean, I know Seth has a lot of things in common with the Forward Party, otherwise he wouldn't have agreed to become a Forward Party affiliated candidate. So one of the things that everybody on this Zoom call and everybody within your organization can do, it's free, it's incredibly helpful, is sharing information about Seth to your personal networks, be that, on social media, through email, because one of the things that will send a message, particularly in an area like Philadelphia that is so strongly known as a one-party city, or one-party county, it kind of is interchangeable when we talk that way, is drawing more cross-partisan votes to Seth. It's kind of funny because when the Working Families Party candidate was running, one of the things that we heard a lot of was what you were getting was the Democrat, and then like even further out on that side of the political spectrum, if you want to put people onto the spectrum, and you were losing completely the balance there, so anything you can do to let people know, Seth is deserving of those cross-partisan votes, because it keeps that balance. And there's, I can answer questions for you, but probably the biggest thing is go to his website. You'll find out how he's worked to increase voter registration and ballot access, increase transparency, enhance, election security and operations. And I say enhance election security because that is something that, while that term has probably been a little bit co-opted over the past couple of years, it's something that, when we see in polling, is something that is pretty much across the platform of political views that people want. How they view that might be different, but everybody kind of wants to feel that when they go in and they vote, the system works. And the things that Seth has worked on with the other city commissioners, sort of cross those political divides to make that happen. So, I don't want to take up too much of your time, considering Seth is kind of won already because of what happened, but I do want to answer any questions you might have. It's funny, I actually see Representative Stile on here, who I did work for many years ago. Was at the time, a leading moderate Republican in the state house. So, it's I can see where your party's, where the forward movement really is.
So Jason, it looks like we do have a couple questions. Before I even call on those, I just want to say, I love your call for people to visit the website and share information. It's not we love to see such a strong candidate representing the people, and that the fact that we can look at this and say it looks like Seth has a win. and love to be part of that. And yet we love competitive races and we love voter engagement, right? So for right now, I think part of what I would ask for the people within Pennsylvania Ford, especially within the district, within the county, is to still engage people and get them introduced to who Seth Bluestein is and what he stands for. So as you visit the website and educate yourself, sharing that information out is valuable, just because it gets people involved and helps them to understand who their representative is. So Brian, I see your hand. I saw Norma raising her hand physically though too. I'm going to go ahead and ask Norma first, and then we'll go back to Brian.
Perhaps I'm the only person on this call who really votes in Philadelphia. Maybe there are some others I'm not aware of, but I think we should just really underline the heroism of Seth Bluestein and Al Schmidt in the last Trump election. I mean, they really faced significant danger to their lives and their family. He's a true hero. And so I can't say strongly enough how important it is that he gets all the support that is available to him. So I don't know if there's anybody else on this call that votes in Philadelphia, but certainly I support him very, very, very strongly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Norma. Very important for everyone to recognize that. Brian.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here, Jason. To second what Norma said, that's a great angle to take when we face criticism for like third parties are going to get Trump elected and we have to respond to that. We could say, well, Seth Bluestein was one of the guys that, did the right thing when he was called on. So that's a great angle. Jason, I'd really appreciate to hear from you. When we talk about being a third party, a lot of times the angle we take is that we want to challenge all these uncontested races. So in a case like this where, Seth was able to get on the ballot and the candidate from the third party wasn't able to get on the ballot, I just wonder how you think about that in terms of like the difficulty that third parties have of getting candidates on the ballot and what the implications would be if we were successful and in a few cycles we're able to challenge every race has at least two candidates of different parties.
Well, specific to Seth's race, so everybody understands this. The Working Families Party was successful in getting candidates on the ballot in several seats in Philadelphia. And in fact, the opponent had enough signatures to get on the ballot. What happened is they did not file some other forms, some ethics forms that are required, actually as part of transparency, really, about the candidates and their statement of financial interests and stuff, that are some of the most base forms that every candidate has to file and has to do so in a certain way. And that's why he was not allowed on the ballot. But there are other working family parties who had, who collected exactly for the most part the same signatures because they did in these groups. But ballot access is always an issue with third parties in Pennsylvania. I will say it got significantly easier in the last round of election changes. Look, I think third parties on the ballot it's going to take a while. I believe it's probably where the United States in general is heading. I don't think it's going to be something that happens on a presidential level anytime soon, because you have a 50-state patchwork of ballot access laws, some of which are very difficult, some of which are much easier. However, I think you're going to start seeing a state here and a state there where the third party, the truth of the matter is most of America is a center, right, center, left, but really that not very far off that center bubble. first step is going to be ballot access. Second step, and I say this, and I know it gets people mad, it has to do with raising money. What I think, however, can happen for third parties is a lot like the Bernie Sanders model and some of the other models, where you can raise money through a lot of small dollar donations. I know people hate the hearing about money, but I look at money as only one thing, and that is, it costs money to tell people who you are. And unfortunately, even to buy Facebook ads, which are generically less expensive, costs some money. And unfortunately, in today's busy world, you have to tell people who you are. But I think people are very open to the idea of a third party candidate. I think people are getting very tired of the political divisiveness. I think I don't think there's anybody on this call, and I don't think there's anybody on this call who doesn't know somebody from either end of the spectrum that isn't basically walking around saying, I'm just a little tired of it. I feel like I'm voting for the lesser of two evils, or the one that's going to hurt me less, or whatever. So, I think that appeal is there. It's just going to take a little time. I think what the forward party is doing is actually, instead of, how do I put this, instead of jumping in with both feet of putting forth all its own candidates, but finding affiliates who sort of are in that mold is an interesting idea. But I mean, I think you're on the right path. I think it's going to take a couple cycles. I think you're also being smart in that you're not trying to shoot the moon, but making logical steps of where you can make an impact first.
Thank you, Jason. Really appreciate you joining us here tonight and taking the time to address what's going on with the campaign, and those words of insight as far as how we should be looking at things. And the fact is, yes, right now money is part of politics. The transparency isn't always there that we desire, and hopefully that's a way that we can demonstrate a difference as we build our parties. Even as money comes in, we can be transparent about where the funding is coming from and telling the story of how we're a little bit different. So thank you much.
Thank you.
I see a couple names where the name's not there. So I just want to see if Ben Wren was able to join us, if he's here or not. I don't think I knew there was a chance he might not make it. I do see Keith is with us. Keith,
yes, indeed.
Great.
Joined a little late. I apologize. I just got out of a meeting, but I was
You're
able to
perfect
catch
timing. You're actually early, but because Ben's not here, it's your turn. So appreciate you being here with us tonight. Why don't you introduce yourself to the folks?
Okay, thank you. My name is Keith Schmidt. My public relations and marketing and political firm is called Bridge Connections here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I represent clients around Pennsylvania and around the country for some politics, some government affairs, some crisis management, career development. It's a company I formed in 2007 after a career in both the United States House and Senate for around a generation, spending 16 of those years with former United States Senator Rick Santorum from Pennsylvania. But my political career started back in 1980 as an intern for then Governor Ronald Reagan on his successful run for the presidency in 1980 against the incumbent Jimmy Carter. And I, for one, have in the 16 and a half years since I left the Senate, I can tell you that Washington is hardly recognizable based on what I left in 2007. It's just hard to believe that what has happened in both major parties in America, and the discord. And I said, the whole tolerance issue is a big deal to me. I mean, I just think America has become intolerant. That if you don't agree with me on everything, then I hate you. It's like, what the hell is all that all about? I mean, I spent, I was a Republican, but I worked with Democrats my entire career and moved the ball forward. We fought the fight up to the election, and we won some, we lost some, but we knew we had to govern. And it seems like we've lost sight of that, quite frankly. And it looks like both parties, the proverbial tail is wagging the dog. The influence of the far left progressives and the MAGA Republicans is at the point where the word dangerous is a fair word to use. What's happening, and it's I've been listening to about third parties since Anderson took a big vote back in 1980, actually, for president. I think he took 8 or 9%. That was a big deal, and how off and on for years I've been hearing about the growth of a third party, but it's never been riper in my mind, in my lifetime, at least in the 43 years that I spent in politics. I've never seen a time when people are ready and want to hear about what the opportunities are outside the traditional parties. And I was just honored to be working with the Forward Party this cycle, and they found home at 2 places here near my hometown here in Allegheny County, where Pittsburgh sits. And we have a Soros candidate running for DA, Mike Dugan, and Mr. Dugan has got around $1.4 million to win the primary from Soros. And the Forward Party came in and has endorsed the Democrat here in Allegheny County, the 6th-term Democratic incumbent, Steve Zapala, who served as DA since 1998, and has signed a pledge to follow our principles and govern by our principles. And we've got a lot of attention, a lot of positive impact since Governor Whitman came in last month. And the chatter is out there, both on talk radio and in the newspapers and on television. And we're going to up that chatter a little bit, because now we have an open executive race in Pittsburgh, in which a progressive beat out a bunch of the regular Democrats with around 36% of the vote, won the Democratic nomination for chief executive. And clearly this woman has a pretty, I would call, slight resume, has no management experience, has no finance experience, very limited professional resume. And we found a gentleman, a former executive for PNC Bank, who has managed billions of dollars and thousands of employees, has made his way to the Republican nomination. And in a couple of days here in Pittsburgh, Mr. Yang is going to be coming in to Pittsburgh for another Forward Party luncheon and press conference, I believe, on Thursday, in which the Republican candidate against the progressive, Joe Rockey, is going to have a press conference with Andrew Yang and some other local dignitaries, including some major union folks from the Labor's, which is the largest labor party in Allegheny County. The Labor's Union 1058 is hosting the event and the press conference. And he's going to sign the pledge in front of the news media on Thursday. So it'll be a twofer, the 2 races that mean the most in Western Pennsylvania. The Forward Party is playing in both of them. And I would suggest that there's a better than even chance, or no, I wouldn't say that. I'd say we're right at even right now. I think both races are a toss up, and the Forward Party can celebrate in November if either one of our candidates win. Will be narrow, and I can tell you the Forward Party will be one of the people that they'll be thanking on election night, because a close race is where we could really make a difference for them. And there's a lot of excitement. So I'm happy that the 2 candidates that are running against fringe candidates from both parties have found a home with Forward, and I'm hoping that it helps with recruitment and raising money here in the western half of Pennsylvania.
Well, Keith, thank you so much for addressing everyone and sharing all of that. Keith and I had a chance to get together last week and spend some time getting acquainted and just learning more about his background and history. And certainly a very knowledgeable and personable man with lots of great connections, going to help the party out quite a bit. One of the things that we talked about, and we don't want to recap the whole conversation, but I think this is an important point to share with everyone, is about the district attorney, Stephen Zappala. It's kind of one of the curiosities that I've been challenged with from a few people, and have enjoyed talking about the fact that a brand new party is celebrating the alignment of a 6-term incumbent. And it's a real interesting race altogether, because Stephen has always been a Democrat and lost the primary as a Democrat, but he had enough write-in votes on the Republican side, so he actually accepted the Republican nomination, and then now is also affiliated with Forward. So he's kind of has a foot. You don't get 3 feet, but he's got 3 feet out there in all different areas here. But I think it's important. And Keith, if you can give a quick summation of how is it that it makes sense, and what is it that Stephen Zappala, as district attorney, stands for, that represents him beyond some of the slipping that's happened in the city, and why he's the right man for the job.
Well, I certainly will address that. First and foremost, let me paint a picture that the news media was slow to cover the dynamics of the race against Mr. Dugan. Mr. Dugan is the former district. Let me just trying to think what they're called. What's the attorney that you're?
Public defender.
Public defender. Wow, I had a senior moment there. He was the public defender in Allegheny County, and he resigned that position several months ago, right before the election. But he served as the public defender in Pittsburgh. And he had tracked that the money from Soros came in late, and it was not well reported in the media. And in fact, most of the attention about Soros in the Pittsburgh media, both in newspaper, radio, and print, came after the primary. So Dugan was kind of able to come under the radar with this. And quite frankly, I would suggest to you that the incumbent, Mr. Zappala, fell victim to a general sense in America. I said the stock in sitting DAs is very low right now because of what we're seeing happening all over the country, and the things that are not being charged, and the people getting out on bail, and not charging certain drug crimes and other things that are on lists. There was a sense, and we have polling to suggest this, that really believed that the incumbent was the liberal perpetrator, meaning this Zappala was the liberal you were trying to beat. And let's just say, for argument, that he might have been liberal, and I'll make the argument that he was not. Even if you would consider him liberal, the average voter, what they didn't realize is the Soros candidate was far to the left of Mr. Zappala. Soros, by proportion of the population, the Soros money was higher in Pittsburgh than any other city in America, 1.4 million, based on our population of 1.2 million in Allegheny County. By percentage, it was one of the largest donations ever given to a political candidate. And I can tell you that Mr. Zappala in the past has not found too many Republican challengers. And in fact, there's been an organized effort in previous elections for people to write him in as Republicans, and he has secured our nomination as Republicans several times over. In this particular race, frustrated by the fact that no Republican ran, and that Dugan was such an ultra liberal, the former Republican governor of Pennsylvania, who lives in suburban Pittsburgh, Tom Corbett, he's the last elected governor of Pennsylvania that was a Republican, and his circle organized a specific effort to educate Republicans that we made that Duggan was a dangerous candidate, and he foresaw the possibility of him with the Soros money winning the nomination, and organized an effort both in letter writing and in texting and whatnot to get the Republican nomination for the Democratic incumbent. So it was an absolute organized effort by Republicans, some prominent Republicans, to make sure that there was going to be a choice if indeed the liberal, ultra liberal Mr. Duggan made his way the nomination. Well, lo and behold, competitive race. I still think he lost by 10 or 15,000 votes. We're thinking that could be easily made up with Republican votes if they stay loyal to Mr. Zappala as they had previous years. And there's plenty of evidence of the frustration of the sitting attorney general, sitting district attorney, Steve Zappala, that of the public defender, and arguing when they didn't like the bail amounts and different things that he was doing on cases. There was a move to send many cases. It was a liberal U.S. attorney appointed by President Biden. And he fought the fight several times over on big cases, saying there is no federal role. This should be a district. I should be making the decision, and has lost in some of those cases, won others. But I can tell you that the liberal in this race is not the sitting the sitting district attorney. He is absolutely a moderate incumbent, somebody that the Forward Party should embrace. And as much as we're worried about the top of the ticket, which is the county executive race, the average person who is in the know, and I would consider myself one of those people that are in the know in Allegheny County, I'm probably more concerned about Mr. Duggan winning than losing the top of the ticket, because if Mr. Duggan wins and George Soros implements his no bail for multiple crimes, don't process drug offenders, and all the things that he put in place in San Francisco, Philadelphia, Detroit, and other cities, we can literally be Detroit in 6 months. So the danger really exists, and the Forward Party's standing with Mr. Zappala is as critical an opportunity for the Forward Party than we've faced, I think, in any races in recent years. I think if Zappala can defeat Duggan this fall, it'll make national news because of the amount of money Mr. Soros spent in this particular race.
Thank you, Keith. I appreciate you sharing all of that insight for everyone. And part of what we want to do as we continue to grow this party is make information available, not just blindly endorse people or build these alliances without you guys getting to know the candidates and the races and what they stand for. We are all about building engagement. But certainly, as you can hear from the passion in Keith as he speaks about this, these are a couple critical races that are taking place in Allegheny County, and we have the opportunity to play an important role in the direction of one of the major cities within our state. So it's a great place for us to be, that we can make a difference and really get involved and become visible. So there's going to be work to do. And not everyone's over here in the western part of the state, but there's still going to be ways to get involved, and we certainly will be passing those messages along and inviting you to participate and sharing with others that you might know specifically in the area. So before I move on, are there any questions for Keith? All right.
Wow, it's pretty thorough. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here, Keith. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. So in the agenda for tonight, I just wanted to go through and announce and confirm what some is going to be news and some is going to be confirmation of the candidates that we have as of today, moving forward for this cycle. These are the ones that have gone through the formal official process. And there may be other candidates that are also running with Forward that are still either going through the process or running independent of the process. But we just heard about Seth Lustein and Steven Zapala. I see Chris Woodward on the call. He is running for Township Auditor at Lower Heidelberg Township in Berks County. And Chris, I'm going to be making calls out to everyone before next month, but next month I'm inviting all of these candidates. I want you to be the speakers at next month's forum and talking about what the process was like getting involved to be a candidate, and what you need to be able to complete your task of getting elected. So hopefully you'll be able to make next month's call and be able to be part of that. We also have Brittany Cozen, Township Supervisor, Northampton Township in Bucks County. Jordan Succi, Township Auditor, Northampton Township, Bucks County. Shannon Wheeler, Magisterial District Judge in Halifax Jackson Township, Dauphin County. Timothy McMaster, Township Supervisor, Conewago Township, York County. And somebody correct me if I said that township wrong. Anybody, did I get that right? Does anybody know that township? Because that's a new one to me. Okay. But there are a few other names that may be added, but thank you all. You know, it was a few short months ago, we didn't have any candidates yet. You know, we're starting something new. So to sit here today and say we have these, 7 names and more that are getting added has been a great progress, and that's thanks to all the hard work that people have put in. Ben, thank you for leading the candidate committee and all the others who were part of that. And I don't want to not mention Bob Connor also. He has not gone through the endorsement process. He was showing his flyers earlier, and you can hold up your flyer to your camera once again, Bob. We know you're doing a write-in campaign, and we appreciate you and all your energy and all you do to talk about Forward as well. So Keith did allude to, actually, he went further than alluding. He let the cat out of the bag. We have a big announcement coming up this Thursday, and for anyone who's willing to drive in or from the area, we would love to have you come out and join us. We're going to be at the Union Hall, downtown Pittsburgh on 8th Street. Andrew Yang, co-chair of the National Forward Party, is coming in to be part of this announcement. And we couldn't be more excited and to have Joe Rocky, candidate for county executive, affiliating with the Forward Party and signing the pledge. And, it's so important that you guys all recognize and realize this pledge that we have our candidates sign really is a commitment to values and a commitment to the types of changes that helps to change the landscape of the politics and making sure that voter engagement is put at the forefront and that it really is a representation of the people. And so when people are willing to sign that and publicly declare, it's such a wonderful thing to celebrate, but also along with that comes work. So we'll be excited to learn more and build relationships with Joe Rocky and his supporters and help to share the word throughout Allegheny County. There may be opportunities for some phone banking or text banking, and certainly some literature drops or tabling. But of course, anyone who is able to make it on Thursday, I'm really looking forward to getting together. Anytime that we have a chance to be together is always exciting. Again, that's at the Laborers Union Hall and headquarters, 8th Street, Pittsburgh, and that's starting at 11 a.m. But with that, we've completed the written agenda part of the night, but I just want to open the floor if there's any questions before we wrap it up for the night.
Can you hear me?
There we go, Harry.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I just joined. I'm still learning what's going on. I'm in Indiana, Pennsylvania. Anybody in this group in Indiana County or the neighboring counties?
I'm in Westmoreland County in New Kensington, so not too far
Okay.
away from you.
Okay, you're in New Kensington. Okay.
Welcome, Harry. Glad to
Oh,
have
thank you. Thank you.
Harry, just
I think Emily
communicating
had,
by
there you go.
email. I'm in Somerset County.
Yeah, yeah. I've been texting or emailing Emily there.
Welcome, Harry.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah, yeah. I'm just gonna trying to learn what's going on. How do I try to recruit people here in Indiana? Do you have a process? Do you have a brochure? Or are we all still learning?
So we do have some written material, and we use a lot of digital material in the website. There is, depending on what level of engagement and time that you're willing to get involved, there is an onboarding that helps to teach you how to use some of the tools that we have.
Okay.
So we have a database that we are able to invite those who want to step up to a volunteer level rather than just a follower, where we can get you access to the database, and you can, through an easy search, see who's within 20 miles of Indiana County.
Okay.
I believe those are on Thursdays, but either through Emily or myself, we can help to get you set up with that.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested in doing that. Thank you.
For Harry or anyone else, I'm going to drop my email in the chat. I'm always interested in hearing from people and doing whatever we can to get you plugged in with people. So, Brian.
Yeah, I just wanted to shout out that on the eastern side of the state, there were actually dueling events on Saturday. It sounds like there were people at a fall fest, there were people talking to people on the street. So anybody that took part in either of those, I'd love to hear from how it went. Was anybody at one of those?
I know Kyle was. I saw pictures, but he might not be in a place to talk right now. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he might have jumped off. I also saw those pictures. It looked like it was a nice day. And Kelly was there, and I think one other person. I wasn't able to be there, but and then Brian, I believe you think Nancy Hanks and
Yeah.
at least John Welchel. Some people were down in maybe Rittenhouse Square downtown this weekend as well. Just talking to people,
Okay.
sharing information. I was not at either, but I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah. So those sorts of events are happening. We can do more if anyone feels like doing that. We have materials that can go out to do those things. And if you need any pointers, Nancy will be more than happy to talk you through what you should expect when talking to people. So yeah, that's always something we can do.
Yeah,
We need
keep
to
an
do-
eye out. This is the season, fall festivals. It's almost election time. By the time we meet again, and one more time, the election's done. So I did put in the chat, there's something in Bucks County coming up on October 1st, which I will be attending. We actually attended last year, and we had an endorsed candidate, Ellie Brayman. We have 2 candidates this year. Chris, if there's anything out your way that you know about that allows for political tabling and things, we need all you guys to let us know about the things in your community, and we can try to get people in your region. It only takes a couple people to make a difference.
Ben.
Along with that, I would also like to mention that there's a couple of regional calls this week. The Northeast Regional Call is scheduled for Thursday, September 21st at 7 p.m. The Southwest Regional Call is scheduled for September 13th, or sorry, it got changed to Wednesday, September 20th at 7 p.m. And I think that's it right now.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you all being here. And we'll look forward to seeing some of you on Thursday, and just keep doing the work. Have a great night.
Excuse me.